Dear investors, welcome to a new video on our YouTube channel. So this time we will be not speaking about a public equity company, but we'll be speaking about Builder.ai, which was a private equity, and they filed for bankruptcy a couple of days ago. And some of you may know them. They have been listed as one of the European unicorns, so they were a 1 billion valuated UK unicorn. First things first is, what was the core product of Builder.ai? So they were actually promoting a Builder Studio, which was a no-code, low-code platform for developing mobile apps, websites, e-commerce websites. You see an example of Builder Studio here. And in that context, they were also promoting an AI, let's say, agent called Natasha, who was in fact simulating a human project manager and helping companies using Builder Studio to be very efficient and productive in their app and website development process. The company, in fact, most of the people know the company under the name Builder.ai, but in fact the company's name is Engineering.ai, and it was incorporated in the UK in 2017 by this person that you see here below, who was the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2024 in the UK. So his name is Sachin Dev Dugal. Sorry if my spelling is maybe not perfect on this name. And what was interesting as well, I've put you the screenshots from Crunchbase. So they already had gone through a certain amount of funding. So they were backed by Microsoft, they were backed by the Qatar Investment Authority, where they raised in May 2023 250 million. So they had received around 450 million of funding. So as I said, it's a private equity company, so they had not IPO'd, and I don't think that there were any plans to IPO in short term. What was interesting, and again, I didn't want to comment on, let's say, on news articles. I really tried to make serious research about the company and trying to show you as well what I could research. As the company was registered in the UK, I went to the Companies House of the UK, which is something like the registry of companies in the UK. And indeed, you can see that the CEO, so Sachin Dev Dugal, he was in fact terminated around mid-March 2025, so rough cut 3 months ago. What was interesting nonetheless is that they appointed a new CEO, Manpreet Singh Ratia, and that Dugal kept some type of association with the company, and even on his LinkedIn profile he was still carrying the title of Chief Wizard, whatever that means. What also was interesting is that 2 weeks after the CEO being terminated, so Dugal being terminated, on March 31st, 2025, there were a couple of articles in the press where, in fact, Builder.ai, so probably the new CEO, was announcing actually that he had appointed 2 Big Four firms. So the Big Four firms are typically, I don't know who that would be, but typically KPMG, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, or Pricewaterhouse. So they had appointed 2 of those Big Four firms to review the financials of the company, and specifically, let's say, all the figures that have been building up the financial statements of the companies, because apparently the revenues and the sales figures had been inflated by, let's say, previous management. So this is of course not a very good signal when you have to appoint a new auditor to check previously released financial statements. And then the world was caught by surprise in May 2025, so end of May 2025, so that's a rough cut 6 weeks ago, where in fact Builder.ai has announced that they were filing for bankruptcy or insolvency. And this came after a group of creditors. So they had actually, if you look at the Companies House in the UK, you're going to see the credit agreement that they had with Viola Credit from Israel. So that creditor actually seized most of the company's cash, and the company could not continue its operations. So, and on top of that, there were reports in the US that US prosecutors also demanded to receive a certain amount of documents, including the customer list, because of the inflation, the apparent inflation of the revenues. So in the meantime, the company has appointed an administrator, which is winding down operations and probably selling the assets that are still there. So the main question, and me being an independent board director, I'm also the CEO of a fintech company, was this predictable actually? And I'm gonna give you a certain amount of elements that hopefully will be able to make up your mind about if this was predictable or not. The first thing is the Wall Street Journal in August 2029. They actually had access to people who were familiar with the company operations, where the company was actually claiming having an AI technology, but at the very end it appeared that they were using or outsourcing to engineers in India. I mean, we have to be fair also towards Builder.ai. This was August 2019. I mean, we are now 2025. The power of AI is just completely different versus how it was in August 2019. So that was the first signal. The second thing, and I analyzed all the financial statements that have been published on the company's house in the UK, and you see that in terms of revenue trajectory, so the company has been growing from 6 million to 10 million, stagnated in 2022 on 10 million of revenue, and then 2023 they reported 23 million of pounds of revenue. 2024 the financials have not been published. So the first thing that struck me is that I saw in the fiscal year 2022 report that they actually made a restatement of the 2021 accounting figures. And I'm going to be very direct here. When a company has to make a restatement of a previously released and audited and signed off financial statement, that's never a good signal, right? So, I mean, what has happened? Well, you see that the result was actually double the size of the initial result of 2021. And when you look at the fiscal year 2022, they provide actually in the notes to the financial statement, in note 19, they explain why they had to restate or to readjust the fiscal year 21 financial statements. So actually, and you may shake your head about this or not, but they actually they omitted one of the subsidiaries of Engineering AI, which was a subsidiary in Dubai. So they omitted to consolidate that subsidiary in the financial statements. So, I mean, that's not super clean, let's put it like this. And then one thing, when I was reading specifically the fiscal year 2022, and I came across the same in the 2021 and 2023, I have a tendency to hate related party transactions because it reminds me of WeWork, for example, if you remember, where the guy sold to the company the brands WeWork for, I don't remember how much it was, $5 million US, for example. So what struck me over the various years and in the financial reports, that every single year there were always 3 to 4 related party transactions between Engineering AI company in the UK and some type of weird names of subsidiaries where the former CEO Dougal was having control on. That's why they were listed as related party transactions. Let's be very fair, that's something I clearly do not like. So that's another signal where I'm not sure. I mean, if I would have been a potential investor, I would wanted to understand what was going on there actually. The amounts are not big, but still, I mean, it's not good to have related party transactions in general. Then when I just took a step back and I looked at all those financial statements, and specifically I was like, why is the 2024 financial statement not out yet? We are August 2020, we are July 2025, not yet August, we are July. And the fiscal year of Engineer.ai in the UK was closing March. So meaning the fiscal year of 2024 should have been closed in March 2024. And we are now July 2025. That's more than a year. And the filing is not out. So the reports are not out. That's not normal. And actually, I just looked at all the financial statements from 2020 to 2023. And I came across a couple of things. Bullet point number 1 that you see here in red as well. There was just a single director signing off the financials and even preparing the financials for the company. I mean, that's not good corporate governance. Sorry to say this. You should have more than one person who is at the same time signing off the financials and at the same time preparing them for the statutory auditor. It shall not be the same person. So that's for me a clear signal of bad corporate governance. The second thing is I looked at the delays between you have this on the bullet point number 2, the delays between when was the fiscal year ending and when was the filing done of the financial statements. And when you look at the numbers, so the line which says days between closing and filing, the company systematically was late on filing their financial reports. And it was in average around 1.5 years after the closing of the fiscal year. I mean, for those who know, and across any normal, let's say, country in the world, you cannot wait 1.5 years to file your financial reports, right? I mean, in the UK, if I remember well, it's between, I think, 6 months, and then you get a notification. Maybe for smaller companies, it's 9 months, but for sure not more than 1 year. And I was like, again, investigating in the company's house. And indeed, what struck me is that, and these are the 3 bullet points you see here that are flagged with a big 1. You see that in June 2021, in June 2022, in June 2024, they actually received a notification from the company's house on what is called, and allow me to be 1 second legal here, is called a notification for compulsory strike-off. What is a compulsory strike-off? It's a legal process in the UK which is initiated by the company's house, or the UK company registrar. And if you don't comply, and so why do they do this? It's because the company is not complying to legal obligations. And if in the delay given by the company's house, the company who has received the notification for compulsory strike-off is not adequately responding, the company actually will be dissolved, so would go into liquidation and deregistered from the UK company's house. So they responded to it, but it's nonetheless interesting to see that there were also here 3 signals about compulsory strike-off actions, which were very rapidly discontinued, but nonetheless. So this comes back to what I was showing here, is that the delays between the fiscal year ending and the filing date were actually really too long. And again, March 2024, we are July. And of course, now we know why they did not publish 2024 results. The results actually were probably not looking good, or they would have had to state them correctly. So this is the whole thing that is going on, that they overstated the financials. So the auditor, I mean, as an independent board director, of course, I also expect from, let's say, my auditors to do an adequate amount of work. So the auditor has been, over the last year, since 2020, at least until 2023, has been PKF Littlejohn LLP, which is a company that is having its office in Canary Wharf in London. And so the guy who was signing off the accounts was Paul Goldwyn. You can find him on LinkedIn. What was interesting, and again, I'm just trying to put facts here on the table, because of course you have to think, if a company changes the auditor and asks 2 Big Four firms, so the new CEO is asking 2 Big Four firms to review the financial statements because there are allegations of inflated revenue figures. I mean, that's never good for the previous auditor. Let's be very honest about it. But again, I'm not judging the auditor here. What struck me, and that's something I also do before even I invest into publicly listed companies, I looked at the auditor's remunerations. Okay, the remuneration went up. That's fine. The first thing that struck me, and I will start with that one, which is bullet point number 2, is that in the fiscal year 2023 statements, actually the auditor's fees has been corrected down by £3,000. It's minor, it's not a material issue, but nonetheless, I just wanted to tell you that I saw this. What struck me more, and that's clearly something, again, a warning signal, what I don't like. One of the things when I invest into companies, I like to know who the auditor is, if there are disagreements between the auditor and management, if there are critical audit matters that are listed, but also I'd like to know what is the percentage of audit fees versus consulting fees. I mean, you all remember the Enron cases, the MCI WorldCom cases, so the problem of conflict of interest and independence of the statutory auditor. And here, what I don't like in the Engineer.ai financial reports is that they mention explicitly that the company has taken advantage of the exemption not to disclose amounts related to so what they call non-audit services. So that's typically consulting services, tax advisory services, and so that's clearly something that I don't like. So that would be something that I would like to see, in fact. So that's not normal that we don't see this type of thing. So this is again a warning signal. So as a conclusion, I mean, for me, clearly, was this predictable or not? Difficult to say. It's always easy to say after the fact that it was predictable, but what is clear is that we're analyzing or making a, let's say, looking at the facts, there were some governance signals. Reminds me a little bit of SBF as well, where the board composition was not independent enough, and it was like, so there were like 3 people. There was a girlfriend and a friend. I mean, that's not a good board composition. Here, we didn't have any independent board directors. The sole director was signing off and preparing the financials. That's really not good. They didn't have a CFO between July 2023 and September 2024. That's also not a good signal. Let's be very clear. And it's not a good governance practice to have this. I mean, where I'm sitting at the board of directors, we have the financials being signed off by 2 board members and by the CEO and CFO, because they are non-executives. But I think it's important, if they're non-executives, to have them co-sign the financials as well. In terms of accounting signals, I mean, there was a lack of disclosure of the advisory fees versus the audit fees. We had systematic late filings of the financial reports, including compulsory strike-off actions or notifications by the Companies House in the UK. We had systematic related party transactions, not for huge amounts, but nonetheless, it's not a good practice to have related party transactions. And last but not least, in fact, they changed the fiscal year ending of the last fiscal year just to gain more time. So if you look at the Companies House registry, that's also something, a signal that should have warned people. And I will not consider the Bloomberg report of, or what was it, the Wall Street Journal, sorry, report of 2029 to be a valid signal. I mean, at that time, we didn't even have ChatGPT. So, I mean, the world on generative AI was just different. So I hope that you liked this brief analysis, and do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and talk to you in a next video. Thank you.